The hot Arizona sun beat down on Felicity Noble as she staggered off the dusty stagecoach, one hand pressed against her swollen belly, the other clutching her worn leather satchel, all that remained of her former life in Boston. Sweetwater, Texas was supposed to be just a stop on her journey west, but the baby had other plans. The year was 1875, and as Felicity gazed down the single dirt road that constituted the main street of this frontier town, she felt the familiar sting of judgment from curious onlookers. Her pregnancy showed prominently beneath her travel-worn dress, but no wedding ring adorned her finger, a fact that hadn't escaped the notice of the stagecoach passengers who had whispered behind their hands for the past 3 days. "Need a hand, madam?" The stagecoach driver asked, already busy unloading the luggage of the other travelers. "Thank you, no. I can manage," Felicity replied, summoning what remained of her Boston dignity. At 23, she'd never imagined finding herself alone, pregnant, and destitute in a Texas border town. But fate had delivered worse blows in recent months. Felicity wobbled slightly as she stepped onto the wooden boardwalk, the baby giving a forceful kick as if protesting the journey. The midday heat was suffocating, and dark spots danced before her eyes. She needed water, rest, and eventually, employment. Though who would hire an unmarried mother-to-be was a question she'd wrestled with for months. "Whoa there, steady now," came a deep voice as Felicity pitched forward. Strong hands caught her elbows, keeping her upright. "You all right, madam?" Felicity looked up into the face of a tall man with sun-bronzed skin and the deepest blue eyes she'd ever seen. He wore a dusty cowboy hat pulled low, but she could see concern etched in the lines around his eyes. "I'm fine," she said automatically, though she was anything but. "Just the heat." "Isaac Galloway," he introduced himself, still supporting her with a gentle but firm grip. "And you look like you could use a drink and a place to sit down." Felicity hesitated. Her circumstances had taught her caution around men, but her parched throat and the baby's weight left her little choice. "Felicity Noble," she replied. "And yes, I would appreciate some water." Isaac guided her toward a nearby establishment with a hand-painted sign that read Clara's Cafe. As they entered, the buzz of conversation momentarily halted, and Felicity felt the weight of 24 stares. Her free hand instinctively moved to her belly, a protective gesture that only highlighted her condition. "Clara," Isaac called to a plump woman behind the counter. "This lady needs water and whatever food you've got ready." The woman's eyes flickered to Felicity's belly, then to her bare ring finger, but Isaac's steady gaze seemed to forestall any comment. Clara nodded and bustled off to fetch water. "Where are you headed?" Isaac asked as he helped Felicity into a chair. Felicity faltered. The truth was, she had no destination beyond escape. "I'm not entirely certain. I had thought California, perhaps." Isaac's eyes narrowed slightly as he assessed her. "California's a mighty long way for a woman in your condition traveling alone." Felicity lifted her chin. "I'm stronger than I appear, Mr. Galloway." A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "I don't doubt that, Miss Noble, but even the strongest folks need help sometimes." Clara returned with a glass of water and a plate of biscuits and bacon. "On the house," she said, her expression softening slightly as she noted Felicity's pallor. Felicity drank deeply, the cool water reviving her somewhat. As she set down the glass, she noticed Isaac was still watching her, his expression unreadable. "How far along are you?" he asked quietly. 7 months, I believe," Felicity admitted, seeing no point in pretending otherwise. Isaac nodded. "And the father?" Felicity's hands tightened around the water glass. "Not in the picture," she said tersely, her voice hardening, "and never will be." Instead of the judgment she expected, Isaac merely nodded again. "This town could use a schoolteacher," he said after a moment. Last one left to get married 6 months ago. Felicity blinked in surprise. I was a teacher's assistant in Boston, she admitted. But surely no one would want. Folks here care more about whether you can teach their young'uns to read and cipher than about your personal affairs, Isaac interrupted. Town council's been looking for someone with proper education. But Felicity gestured helplessly to her stomach. Isaac shrugged. That doesn't matter to me, shouldn't matter to anyone else either. His blue eyes held hers steadily. Everyone's got a past, Miss Noble. Out here, it's what you do going forward that counts. For the first time since leaving Boston, Felicity felt a flicker of hope. Do you really think they would consider me? I'm on the council, Isaac said, rising from his chair. And I'll be recommending you. Rest here, finish your meal. I'll go speak to Mayor Wilkins. Before Felicity could thank him, Isaac was gone, the cafe door swinging behind him. She stared after him, bewildered by this unexpected kindness. That's Isaac for you, Clara said, refilling Felicity's water glass. Got a soft spot for strays and lost causes. She paused, studying Felicity. Though you don't strike me as either, really. I'm not, Felicity said with quiet determination. Just someone who made a mistake and is trying to find her way forward. Clara's weathered face softened further. Aren't we all, honey? Aren't we all? By sunset, Felicity found herself installed in a small room above the town's general store, with an appointment to meet the full town council the following morning regarding the teaching position. Isaac had returned to the cafe with Mayor Wilkins, a portly man with suspicious eyes but practical sensibilities. We're desperate for educated folks out here, the mayor had explained gruffly. Isaac says you've got teaching experience. That true? Yes, sir, Felicity had replied. 3 years assisting at the Franklin School for Girls in Boston. Why'd you leave? Felicity had swallowed hard. Family circumstances changed, she said, which wasn't entirely a lie. Her circumstances had certainly changed when her father discovered her condition and disowned her. The mayor had grunted, seemingly satisfied. Council meets at 9 tomorrow. We'll hear you out proper then. Now, sitting on the narrow bed in her rented room, Felicity stared out the window at the stars appearing over the Texas horizon. The vastness of the landscape both terrified and comforted her. Perhaps in this wild country she could forge a new beginning for herself and her child. A soft knock at her door startled her from her reverie. Miss Noble, Isaac's voice called. I've brought some things you might need. Felicity opened the door to find the cowboy holding a bundle of cloth and a small basket. Some things from the ladies in town, Isaac explained, handing them over. Word travels fast here. Clara mentioned you might need some proper clothes for tomorrow, and Mrs. Peterson sent over some baby things she had saved from her youngest. Felicity felt her throat tighten with emotion. Thank you. Please thank them for me as well. Isaac nodded, his hat in his hands now. In the lamplight, she noticed details she'd missed before: a small scar along his jawline, the way his dark hair curled slightly at his collar, the gentle crinkles around his eyes suggesting he smiled often. The council's mostly reasonable men, he said. Though Hank Parsons might give you some trouble, he's our resident moralist. His mouth twisted wryly. Ironic, given what goes on at his saloon after hours. Despite herself, Felicity laughed a rusty sound she'd nearly forgotten she could make. I'll manage, Mr. Parsons, she said. I've dealt with hypocrites before. I believe you have, Isaac said softly, and something in his tone made Felicity wonder how much of her story he had guessed. Rest well, Miss Noble. Tomorrow's a new beginning. As Isaac turned to leave, Felicity called after him. Mr. Galloway. Why are you helping me? Isaac paused, considering her question. Everyone deserves a second chance, he said finally, especially those brave enough to seek one out. With a tip of his hat, he was gone, boots echoing down the wooden stairs. That night, for the first time in months, Felicity slept deeply and dreamlessly, one hand resting protectively on her belly, the other clutching the small silver locket that contained the only photograph of her mother, the woman who had taught her that survival sometimes meant starting over. Morning brought clear skies and renewed determination. Felicity dressed in one of the dresses provided by the townswomen, a simple blue calico that had been cleverly altered to accommodate her condition. She pinned up her honey-brown hair and practiced her most composed expression in the small mirror. The town council meeting was held in the back room of the Sweetwater Bank, around a scarred oak table. 5 men sat in judgment: Mayor Wilkins, Hank Parsons, the saloon owner, Reverend Thomas, Mr. Greeley, the bank manager, and Isaac, who gave her an encouraging nod as she entered. "Miss Noble," Mayor Wilkins began, "we understand you're seeking the position of schoolteacher for our community. We've had some concerns raised about your suitability given your—" He gestured vaguely toward her midsection. "My pregnancy," Felicity supplied calmly. "Yes, I'm aware that my situation is unconventional. However, my condition does not affect my abilities as an educator. I am well versed in literature, mathematics, history, and basic sciences. I can also teach music and proper penmanship." "It's not your qualifications we question," Hank Parsons interrupted, his thin face pinched with disapproval. "It's the example you set. What are we teaching our children if their instructor is human?" Isaac suggested, his voice deceptively mild. "Capable of mistakes but determined to make an honest living," Parsons flushed. "You know what I mean, Galloway. This town has standards." "Does it?" Isaac challenged. "Because last I checked, half the men who frequent your establishment aren't exactly paragons of virtue." "Hank." Reverend Thomas cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should focus on the practical aspects. Miss Noble, our school has 23 students ranging from 6 to 16 years of age. Some have never had formal education. The schoolhouse is rudimentary at best. The pay is $30 a month with lodging provided." "That sounds more than fair," Felicity replied. "I would need some time after the birth, of course." "And what of the child?" Mr. Greeley asked. "Who will care for it while you teach?" "I've considered that," Felicity said, though in truth, she had been too focused on survival to plan that far ahead. "I believe I can arrange." Clara mentioned she'd be willing to help, Isaac interjected. "Her youngest is nearly grown and she misses having a little one around." Felicity shot him a grateful look. Mayor Wilkins drummed his fingers on the table. "Miss Noble, could you step outside while we deliberate?" The next 10 minutes were the longest of Felicity's life as she waited in the bank's front room, hands clasped tightly over her belly. When Isaac finally opened the door to call her back, his expression gave nothing away. "Miss Noble," the mayor said as she resumed her seat, "we've decided to offer you the position on a trial basis, 3 months after which we'll reassess. The term begins next Monday." Relief flooded through her. "Thank you, gentlemen. I won't disappoint you." "See that you don't," Parsons muttered, but the others seemed satisfied. As the meeting concluded, Isaac fell into step beside Felicity as she left the bank. "Congratulations, teacher," he said, a smile warming his features. "I have you to thank for it," Felicity replied. "Why did you champion my cause so persistently, Mr. Galloway? You barely know me." Isaac was quiet for a moment as they walked down the main street. "My sister was in a similar situation once," he finally said. "No one gave her a chance. She didn't make it." His voice roughened. "Her baby neither." Felicity's heart constricted. "I'm so sorry." "It was a long time ago," Isaac said, though his eyes suggested otherwise. "Just promise me you'll take care of yourself and that little one." "I promise," Felicity said softly. "Good." Isaac touched the brim of his hat. "Now let me show you the schoolhouse. It's not much, but it's got potential." The schoolhouse was indeed rudimentary, a single room with rough-hewn benches, a battered teacher's desk, and windows that let in more dust than light. But to Felicity, it represented salvation. "The teacher's quarters are through that door," Isaac explained, pointing to a small addition at the back of the building. "One bedroom, a small kitchen, pump out back for water." Felicity stepped into what would be her new home, taking in the sparse furnishings: a narrow bed, a table with 2 chairs, a small cookstove, and empty shelves waiting to be filled. "It's perfect," she whispered, and meant it. Isaac leaned against the doorframe, watching her. "Town ladies will help you get settled. They're already planning what they're calling a welcome basket, though I suspect it's mostly baby things." "The kindness of strangers," Felicity mused. "I didn't expect it." "Folks out here understand hardship," Isaac said. "Most came west running from something or searching for something. Either way, they know the journey isn't easy." Over the next week, Felicity settled into her new life with an energy that surprised even her. The townswomen, after initial curiosity about her past, which she deflected with vague references to being widowed, embraced her with practical assistance. Her small quarters were soon equipped with essentials, and a cradle appeared one morning, handcrafted by the town's blacksmith. By Monday morning, Felicity stood before her class of 23 children, ranging from shy 6-year-old Annie Peterson to lanky 16-year-old James Tucker, who clearly thought himself too old for schooling. "Good morning," she began, resting one hand on her desk for support. "I am Miss Noble, and I will be your teacher. We have much to learn together." The children stared at her with expressions ranging from curiosity to suspicion. A small girl in the front row pointed at Felicity's stomach. "Miss, are you going to have a baby?" she asked innocently. Felicity took a deep breath. This moment would set the tone for her authority. "Yes, Sarah, I am. And when the baby comes, you will all have to be very good students while I'm away for a short time. Now, let's begin by seeing what you all know about your letters." By lunchtime, Felicity had established clear expectations, assessed the widely varying educational levels of her students, and gained a measure of respect from even James Tucker, who grudgingly admitted she knew a fair bit about ciphering. As the children dispersed for their midday meal, Felicity sank gratefully into her chair, her back aching from standing all morning. A knock at the door revealed Isaac, holding a basket. "Thought you might be hungry," he said, entering and placing the basket on her desk. "Clara sent this over." "Thank you," Felicity said, genuinely touched. "It's been a successful morning, I think." Isaac pulled up a small chair, looking comically large sitting on it. "The Tucker boy give you any trouble? He's got a reputation." "Nothing I couldn't handle," Felicity assured him. "He's actually quite bright. Just needs proper channeling for that energy." Isaac nodded, watching as she unpacked the basket: fresh bread, cheese, apple preserves, and a jar of cold tea. "You're good at this. Teaching, I mean." "I enjoy it," Felicity admitted, offering him half of her bread, which he declined with a shake of his head. "Children are honest. They judge you on how you treat them, not on your past or your circumstances." "Speaking of circumstances," Isaac said carefully, "I realize I've never asked exactly what brought you here. Not that it's any of my business," he added quickly. Felicity considered him for a long moment. There was something about Isaac Galloway that inspired trust, perhaps his directness, or the lack of judgment in his steady blue gaze. "I was engaged," she said finally, "to a man from a prominent Boston family. When I discovered I was with child, I naturally expected we would move up our wedding date." The bitterness she tried to bury rose in her voice. Instead, he denied the child was his, claimed I had been indiscreet with others. My father believed him over me. Isaac's expression darkened. The man's a coward. He is, Felicity agreed, but his family has influence. My father disowned me to protect his business connections. I had a small inheritance from my mother, enough to get me west, where I hope to start fresh. And the father? Isaac asked quietly. No chance he'll come looking, Felicity laughed without humor. Charles is likely already engaged to someone more suitable, someone without a complication. She rested her hand on her belly. Besides, I left no trail. As far as Boston society knows, Felicity Noble has gone to live with distant relatives in Europe. Isaac was quiet for a moment, digesting this. Well, he said finally, their loss is Sweetwater's gain. The simple statement, delivered without pity, was exactly what Felicity needed to hear. She blinked back unexpected tears. I should let you finish your lunch before the children return, Isaac said, rising. I'm heading out to the Rocking G for a few days. That's my ranch, about 15 miles north. Cattle need moving to the summer pastures. You're a rancher? Felicity asked, surprised. She'd assumed he was a townsman given his presence on the council. Among other things, Isaac replied with a slight smile. The Rocking G isn't the biggest spread, but it's mine. Worked 10 years to buy it. That's impressive, Felicity said sincerely. Just stubborn, Isaac corrected, but she could see he was pleased by her comment. Clara knows how to find me if you need anything while I'm gone. As he turned to leave, Felicity called after him, Mr. Galloway, thank you for everything. Isaac tipped his hat, a gesture she was coming to find endearing. Just being neighborly, Miss Noble. The days settled into a routine. Felicity taught her students with a passion that gradually won over even the most skeptical parents. Her evenings were spent preparing lessons, writing letters that would never be sent, and making modest preparations for the baby. The ladies of Sweetwater, finding her competent and discreet about her past, gradually welcomed her into their sewing circles and Sunday socials. Isaac returned from his ranch after a week and made a habit of stopping by the schoolhouse every few days, sometimes bringing small gifts, fresh eggs from his chickens. Wildflowers, he claimed, just happened to be growing along his route. A rocking chair, he said, was taking up space in his house. Felicity found herself looking forward to these visits with an eagerness that both pleased and alarmed her. She was in no position to entertain romantic notions, yet she couldn't deny the warmth that spread through her whenever Isaac appeared at her door. One evening in late May, nearly a month after her arrival in Sweetwater, Isaac invited her to dinner at Clara's cafe. Not proper for a lady to eat alone, he explained, though Felicity had been doing exactly that most evenings. Besides, Clara's making peach cobbler tonight. The cafe was busy, but Clara had saved them a corner table. As they ate, Felicity became aware of curious glances from the other diners. Isaac seemed oblivious, regaling her with tales of his cattle drive and asking intelligent questions about her teaching methods. People are watching us, Felicity murmured eventually. Isaac glanced around, unconcerned. Let them. Probably just surprised to see me using proper table manners for once. Felicity laughed but persisted. They're probably wondering why you're spending time with the scandalous unwed mother-to-be. Isaac set down his fork, his expression suddenly serious. Felicity, he said, using her given name for the first time. Do you know what folks around here call me behind my back? The Hermit of Rocking G. What? Why? Because I keep to myself, have done for years. He twisted his water glass in his hands. After my sister died, I didn't much see the point in getting close to people, focused on building my ranch instead. What changed? Felicity asked softly. Isaac's eyes met hers. You got off that stage, coach. The simple statement hung between them, loaded with meaning neither was quite ready to address. "Isaac," Felicity began, but was interrupted by a commotion at the cafe entrance. "Where is she?" demanded a harsh voice. "Where's Felicity Noble?" Felicity froze, her blood turning to ice as she recognized the voice. Charles Blackburn, her former fiancé, stood in the doorway, his expensive Eastern attire standing out starkly among the practical frontier clothing of Sweetwater's citizens. "Charles," she whispered, her hand instinctively moving to protect her belly. Isaac was on his feet immediately, positioning himself between Felicity and the newcomer. "Can I help you, mister?" he asked, his voice deceptively calm. Charles spotted Felicity and pushed past Isaac. "There you are," he sneered. "Do you know how long it took to track you down? Your father finally broke and told me you'd headed west." Felicity rose shakily to her feet. "What are you doing here, Charles?" "Cleaning up loose ends," Charles replied coldly. "My wedding is in 2 months. I can't have you showing up with that." He gestured dismissively at her belly. "I have no intention of returning to Boston," Felicity said, finding her voice. "You made your position quite clear." Charles lowered his voice, though in the now silent cafe everyone could still hear. "I have a proposition. Financial compensation in exchange for your permanent silence and—" He eyed her stomach with distaste. "A guarantee that you'll place the child with a suitable institution once it's born." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the cafe. Isaac's hands had clenched into fists at his sides, but Felicity laid a restraining hand on his arm. "Let me handle this," she whispered before turning back to Charles. "You want to pay me to abandon my child?" she asked, her voice ringing with disbelief. "Be reasonable, Felicity," Charles hissed. "You can't possibly raise it alone. My father is prepared to be generous. Get out." The words came not from Felicity, but from Clara, who had emerged from behind her counter with a shotgun. "We don't take kindly to men threatening our schoolteacher." Charles looked around, suddenly aware of the hostile stares from every direction. "This is a private matter," he insisted. "Not anymore," Isaac said, his voice dangerously soft. "Miss Noble is under this town's protection now. I suggest you leave while you still can." Charles's face contorted with anger. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Your father isn't here," Isaac interrupted. "And his money doesn't impress folks who have survived drought, Comanche raids, and Texas winters. Now go." For a moment, it seemed Charles might argue further, but the unified front of the townspeople and Clara's unwavering shotgun persuaded him otherwise. "This isn't over," he warned Felicity. "I'll be at the hotel. Think about my offer before you throw away your last chance at security." As he stalked out, the cafe erupted in conversation. Felicity sank back into her chair, trembling. Isaac immediately knelt beside her. "Are you all right?" he asked urgently. I never thought he'd follow me," Felicity whispered. "What am I going to do?" Clara brought over a glass of brandy. "Drink this, honey, then we'll figure it out." The alcohol burned Felicity's throat but steadied her somewhat. She looked around at the concerned faces of people who just weeks ago had been strangers. "I won't leave," she said firmly. "This is my home now, my baby's home." "Damn right it is," Clara declared, and a chorus of agreement rose from the other diners. Later, Isaac insisted on walking Felicity back to her quarters behind the schoolhouse. The night was warm, stars blanketing the Texas sky, but Felicity barely noticed, her mind still reeling from Charles's appearance. "He won't give up easily," she said as they reached her door. "Charles always gets what he wants." "Not this time," Isaac said firmly. "This isn't Boston, Felicity. Out here, a man stands or falls on his own merits, not his family name or bank account." Felicity looked up at him, suddenly overwhelmed by the events of the evening. "Why are you doing this, Isaac?" standing up for me, risking confrontation with a man like Charles. Isaac was silent for a long moment, his face half hidden in shadow. Then, with deliberate slowness, he removed his hat and held it against his chest. "Because I'm falling in love with you," he said simply. "Have been since you stepped off that stage looking like you were ready to take on the whole frontier by yourself." Felicity's breath caught. "Isaac, I'm having another man's child." "That doesn't matter to me," he said, echoing his words from their first meeting. "What matters is who you are, Felicity. Your courage, your kindness, your determination." He smiled slightly. "The way you handled James Tucker when he tried to put that snake in your desk drawer." Despite everything, Felicity laughed. "He's actually doing quite well in arithmetic now. See?" "That's what I mean." Isaac took a step closer. "I'm not asking for anything right now. You've got enough to handle with the baby coming and Charles making threats. I just wanted you to know where I stand." Felicity felt tears welling in her eyes. "I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Isaac assured her. "Just know that whatever happens with Charles, you're not alone anymore." He leaned down and with exquisite gentleness kissed her forehead. "Good night, Felicity," he whispered, then turned and walked away, his straight-backed figure gradually disappearing into the darkness. Felicity stood at her door long after he'd gone, one hand pressed to her forehead where his lips had touched, the other cradling her belly where the baby kicked vigorously, as if approving of this new development. The next morning, Felicity awoke to find Hank Parsons waiting outside the schoolhouse. His usual pinched expression was replaced by something approaching contrition. "Miss Noble," he began awkwardly, "about that fella yesterday. I want you to know the town council stands behind you." 100%. Felicity blinked in surprise. "Thank you, Mr. Parsons. That means a great deal." "Well," the man shuffled his feet, "man who'd abandon his own child doesn't deserve any consideration in my book. My wife said I should tell you that. Well, that I was wrong about you. You're a fine teacher." As he hurried away, Felicity stood bemused. It seemed Charles's appearance had accomplished what weeks of dedicated teaching couldn't: full acceptance from even her harshest critic. The school day proceeded normally, though Felicity noticed several fathers had decided to personally escort their children and lingered outside longer than usual. By afternoon, she understood why they were keeping watch, ensuring Charles didn't approach the schoolhouse. As the last child departed, Felicity was not surprised to see Isaac riding up on his bay gelding. What did surprise her was the second horse he led, a gentle-looking dun mare with a side saddle. "Thought you might like to see the rocking G," he said casually. "Clara's already agreed to come by and lock up the schoolhouse." "Isaac, I can't possibly ride in my condition," Felicity protested. "Daisy here is the gentlest horse in the county," Isaac assured her, "and we'll take it slow. Dr. Hayes says light exercise is good for expectant mothers." "You asked the doctor." Felicity wasn't sure whether to be touched or mortified. "Just being thorough," Isaac said with a grin. "Besides, I thought you might feel safer away from town until we figure out what to do about your unwanted visitor." The logic was sound, and if Felicity was honest with herself, she was eager to see Isaac's ranch and to escape the possibility of another confrontation with Charles. With Isaac's help, she mounted Daisy and found the side saddle surprisingly comfortable. They rode at a leisurely pace, Isaac pointing out landmarks and sharing stories about the area. As they crested a hill about 10 miles north of town, the rocking G spread out before them a modest but well-maintained ranch house. Several outbuildings, corrals holding horses, and in the distance, scattered herds of cattle grazing on the spring grass. "It's beautiful," Felicity said sincerely. Isaac's face lit with pride. Started with nothing but 100 acres and 20 scrub cattle. Now it's 2,000 acres and 300 head of prime beef. You've accomplished so much, Felicity marveled. Had nothing but time and determination, Isaac replied, then added more softly, been a lonely achievement, though. At the ranch house, Isaac helped Felicity dismount and led her inside. The main room was surprisingly cozy. Bookshelves lined one wall, comfortable furniture arranged around a stone fireplace, and large windows letting in the afternoon light. "You have books," Felicity exclaimed, immediately drawn to the shelves. Isaac looked pleased. "Reading passes the winter evenings. Feel free to borrow anything that interests you." As Felicity explored the titles, Isaac prepared a simple meal: fresh bread, cold chicken, and early strawberries from his garden. They ate on the porch, watching the sun begin its descent toward the western horizon. "Charles will likely try to see me again," Felicity said, breaking their companionable silence. "What do you think I should do?" Isaac considered this. "What do you want to do?" "Tell him to go to hell," Felicity answered promptly, then blushed at her unladylike language. Isaac laughed, a rich sound that made her smile despite her concerns. "Direct approach, I like it." "But realistically," Felicity continued, "I need to make it absolutely clear that I want nothing from him except to be left alone. His pride won't let him accept that easily. Then we make sure he understands the consequences of persisting," Isaac said firmly. "Sweetwater protects its own." The simple inclusion, "its own," warmed Felicity more than she could express. For the first time since discovering her pregnancy, she felt truly safe. As twilight deepened, Isaac reluctantly suggested they should return to town. "Much as I'd like to keep you here, away from trouble," he said, "I reckon that would start even more gossip than dinner at Clara's did." The ride back was peaceful, stars emerging overhead as they traveled. Approaching Sweetwater, they saw unusual activity: lanterns moving about, raised voices. "Something's wrong," Isaac said, urging his horse forward. They arrived to find a crowd gathered outside the hotel. Mayor Wilkins spotted them and hurried over. "Miss Noble, thank goodness. We've been looking for you," he said breathlessly. "There's been trouble. Charles?" Felicity asked, fear clutching at her heart. "Gone," the mayor confirmed, "but not before he tried to set fire to the schoolhouse." "What?" Felicity gasped. "Don't worry," the mayor hastened to add. "We caught it early, minimal damage, but the man himself escaped during the confusion. Sheriffs organized a posse to track him, but he had a good head start." Isaac helped Felicity down from her horse, his expression thunderous. "Is the schoolhouse secure now? Clara and some of the ladies are cleaning up the smoke damage," Mayor Wilkins assured them. "But perhaps Miss Noble shouldn't stay there tonight, just to be safe." "She can stay at my place in town," Clara said, appearing beside them. "Second bedroom's all made up." Felicity felt overwhelmed. "I can't believe he would do such a thing." "Desperate men do desperate things," Isaac said grimly. "And a man willing to deny his own child is capable of just about anything." The next few days passed in a blur of activity. The schoolhouse was quickly repaired, with the whole town pitching in. There was no sign of Charles, though rumors placed him on a stage headed east. Felicity tried to resume her normal routine, but found herself jumping at shadows, afraid her former fiancé might return to cause more trouble. Isaac became an even more constant presence, often accompanied by his ranch foreman, a taciturn man named Joaquin, who seemed to materialize whenever Felicity ventured out alone. It was obvious that Isaac had assigned him as her unofficial bodyguard. A week after the fire attempt, Isaac invited Felicity to Sunday dinner at his townhouse, a small but well-kept property he maintained for council meetings and business in Sweetwater. "I need to talk to you about something important," he said when she arrived, his expression uncharacteristically serious. Felicity's heart sank. Perhaps he'd reconsidered his declaration, realized the complications of involving himself with a woman in her situation. They ate a delicious meal that Isaac admitted Clara had prepared. "I can cook, but not well enough for company," then moved to the small parlor where a fire warded off the evening chill. "Felicity," Isaac began, sitting beside her on the sofa, "I've been thinking about your situation." "Yes," she said cautiously. "Charles knows where you are now. Even if he's gone back east, there's nothing to stop him returning, maybe with legal papers or hired muscle." Felicity paled. "You think he might try to take the baby?" "I think a man like that will do whatever it takes to protect his reputation," Isaac said grimly. "And a child that could claim his name and inheritance is a threat." "What can I do?" Felicity whispered, her protective instincts flaring. Isaac took a deep breath. "Marry me." Felicity stared at him. "What? Hear me out," Isaac said quickly. "As your husband, I would have legal rights to protect both you and the child. Any claim Charles might make would be significantly weakened if the baby had my name. You're proposing marriage as a legal strategy?" Felicity asked, unsure whether to be touched or insulted. Isaac's expression softened. "That's part of it," he admitted. "The practical part, but you know how I feel about you, Felicity. I meant what I said that night. I'm falling in love with you." "But the baby would be mine in every way that matters," Isaac interrupted. "I don't care that another man fathered it. I'd raise the child as my own with all the love and protection I can provide." Tears welled in Felicity's eyes. "Isaac, it's too much to ask of you." "You're not asking, I'm offering." He took her hands in his. "I know it's sudden. I know you may not feel for me what I feel for you, but I'm a patient man, Felicity. I'll wait as long as it takes to earn your love. In the meantime, I can give you and your child safety, security, and a home where you'll never have to fear judgment or abandonment again." Felicity studied his face, the earnest blue eyes, the strong lines etched by sun and wind, the gentle set of his mouth. In just over a month, this man had become her protector, her friend, and someone she trusted implicitly. Was it so impossible to imagine him as more? "I need time to think," she said finally. "This isn't a decision to make lightly." Isaac nodded, releasing her hands. "Of course. Take all the time you need. The offer stands, whatever you decide." The following morning, Felicity woke early, her mind still churning with Isaac's proposal. She dressed carefully for school, pausing to study her reflection in the small mirror. Her pregnancy was now unmistakable at 8 months, her face fuller, her eyes holding a depth of experience that hadn't been there when she'd fled Boston. As she walked to the schoolhouse, she considered Isaac's offer from every angle. Marriage would indeed provide legal protection for her child. It would also offer stability, respectability, and the chance to stay in Sweetwater permanently. But could she marry a man she wasn't certain she loved, even one as good as Isaac? The school day passed in a blur. Felicity's thoughts elsewhere even as she led recitations and corrected arithmetic. As the children filed out at day's end, Clara appeared at the door. "Thought you might want some company walking home," she said casually, though Felicity suspected Isaac had arranged it. "Thank you," Felicity replied, gathering her books. "Actually, I could use some advice." They walked slowly, the early summer evening pleasant around them. Felicity explained Isaac's proposal, careful to include both his practical reasons and his declaration of feeling. Clara listened without interrupting, then said simply, "The question isn't whether it's a good offer. It is. The question is how you feel about the man." "I care for him deeply," Felicity admitted. "He's been my champion from the moment I arrived, but is that enough for marriage?" "Let me ask you this," Clara said thoughtfully. When you imagine your future raising your child, building a life here is Isaac in that picture. Felicity considered this. She thought about quiet evenings at the Rocking G, Isaac reading by the fire while her child played nearby. She imagined working together to expand the school, perhaps adding a library for the town. She saw birthdays, Christmases, ordinary days made extraordinary by shared joy and mutual respect. "Yes," she said softly, "he is." "And does that future make you happy?" Clara pressed. "Happier than I ever imagined possible after everything that happened in Boston," Felicity confessed. Clara smiled. "Sounds like you have your answer then." That evening, Felicity sent a note to Isaac's townhouse, asking him to meet her at the schoolhouse after supper. As she waited, she moved restlessly around her small quarters, rehearsing what she would say. A knock announced his arrival precisely at the appointed time. Felicity opened the door to find Isaac standing there, hat in hand, expression carefully neutral. "Come in," she said, stepping back. "Would you like some tea?" "No, thank you," Isaac replied, remaining near the door as if preparing for a quick exit should her answer be negative. Felicity took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about your proposal." "And?" Isaac's voice was steady, but she could see tension in the set of his shoulders. "I have concerns," Felicity began. "Not about you," she hastened to add when his face fell slightly. "About me. About whether I can be the wife you deserve." "What do you mean?" Isaac asked. Felicity gestured helplessly. "You're offering me and my child everything. Security, protection, your name. What am I bringing to this marriage except complications and potential scandal?" Isaac crossed the room in 2 strides, taking her hands in his. "Felicity, do you think I care about any of that? You're bringing yourself, your intelligence, your strength, your compassion. You're bringing life and purpose to a house that's been empty for too long." He smiled slightly. "And you're bringing a child who will be loved beyond measure by both of us." Tears spilled down Felicity's cheeks. "You make it sound so simple." "It can be," Isaac said gently. "Not easy, perhaps, but simple. We face whatever comes together." Felicity looked up into his eyes and saw nothing but sincerity and warmth. Something shifted in her heart, a last barrier falling away. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you, Isaac." Joy bloomed across his face, transforming his features. With careful reverence, he leaned down and pressed his lips to hers, their first real kiss, sweet and full of promise. When they parted, Isaac rested his forehead against hers. "I'll spend every day making sure you never regret this decision," he vowed. Felicity smiled through her tears. "I already know I won't." The wedding took place 3 days later in the Sweetwater church, with Reverend Thomas officiating. The entire town turned out for the occasion. The schoolhouse closed for the day so all the children could attend. Felicity wore a dress of pale blue silk that the townswomen had worked day and night to alter for her condition, a crown of wildflowers in her hair. Isaac waited at the altar, looking both nervous and proud in a new black suit. As Felicity walked toward him on Mayor Wilkins' arm, the mayor having insisted on giving her away, she felt a profound sense of rightness settle over her. The ceremony was brief but heartfelt. When Reverend Thomas pronounced them husband and wife, Isaac kissed her with such tender reverence that several of the townswomen dabbed at their eyes. Clara threw the reception at her cafe, the entire town celebrating well into the evening. That night, Isaac took Felicity to his townhouse, now their home until after the baby's birth, when they would move permanently to the ranch. With characteristic sensitivity, he had prepared a separate bedroom for her. "Until you're ready," he explained, showing her the room decorated with fresh flowers and new curtains. "I meant what I said about being patient, Felicity. This marriage may have practical beginnings, but I want it to grow into something real and lasting." Touched by his consideration, Felicity reached up to caress his cheek. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Isaac caught her hand and pressed a kiss to her palm. "Rest well, Mrs. Galloway," he said, his voice warm with the new name. "Tomorrow begins our life together." The following weeks established a new routine. Felicity continued teaching while Isaac divided his time between the ranch and town, never straying far as her due date approached. They learned each other's habits, preferences, and histories, building a foundation of friendship alongside the growing affection between them. At night, they would sit on the porch, watching the stars and talking of the future. Isaac began building a cradle for the baby, his large hands surprisingly deft with the delicate woodwork. Felicity found herself falling more deeply in love with him each day, not with grand gestures, but with the consistent care and respect he showed her and her unborn child. 1 month after their wedding, as July heat settled heavily over Texas, Felicity woke in the night to sharp pain and wetness soaking the sheets. The baby was coming, a full 2 weeks before expected. "Isaac," she called, her voice tight with pain. He appeared instantly, as if he'd been waiting just outside her door. One look at her face told him everything. "I'll get the doctor," he said, already pulling on his boots. "Hurry," Felicity gasped as another contraction gripped her. The next hours passed in a blur of pain and exhaustion. "Doctor." Hayes arrived quickly, followed by Clara and several other women with experience in childbirth. Isaac was banished to the parlor, where he paced ceaselessly, flinching at each of Felicity's cries. Shortly after dawn, a new cry filled the house, the lusty wail of a newborn taking its first breath. Isaac froze, his heart pounding as he waited for news. Clara appeared in the doorway, her face tired but beaming. "Congratulations, Papa," she said. "You have a son." Isaac sat down abruptly, overcome. "A son," he repeated, "and Felicity, tired but well," Clara assured him. "She's asking for you." Isaac approached the bedroom as if in a dream. Inside, he found Felicity propped against pillows, her face drawn with exhaustion but radiant as she cradled a small bundle wrapped in a soft blanket. "Come meet your son," she said softly. Isaac moved to her side, perching carefully on the edge of the bed. Felicity tilted the bundle so he could see the tiny face, red and wrinkled, with a shock of dark hair and tightly closed eyes. "He's perfect," Isaac whispered, awe in his voice. "Would you like to hold him?" Felicity asked. With infinite care, Isaac took the baby, his large hands dwarfing the tiny form. As he cradled his son in his heart, that's exactly what this child was. The baby's eyes fluttered open, revealing deep blue that mirrored Isaac's own. "Hello, little one," Isaac murmured. "I've been waiting to meet you." Felicity watched them, her heart so full she thought it might burst. "What should we call him?" Isaac looked up, surprised. "You haven't chosen a name." "I thought we should decide together," Felicity said. "He's your son too, in every way that matters." Isaac swallowed hard against the emotion rising in his throat. "What about Samuel?" he suggested. "After my father, Samuel Galloway." Felicity tested the name. "I like it. Samuel Isaac Galloway." Isaac's eyes shone with unshed tears. "You give him my name as well." "Of course," Felicity said simply. "You've given us so much. Your name, your protection, your home." She reached for his hand. "Your love." Isaac carefully transferred Samuel back to Felicity's arms, then leaned forward to kiss her forehead. "I never thought I could love anyone as much as I love you," he confessed. "But now there are 2 of you." "3," Felicity corrected gently. "We're a family now, Isaac." As if in agreement, little Samuel made a soft cooing sound, his tiny hand escaping the blanket to wave in the air. Isaac offered his finger, which the baby gripped with surprising strength. "Strong, like his mother," Isaac observed. "And his father," Felicity added, leaving no doubt which man she meant. News of Samuel's birth spread quickly through Sweetwater. Despite the doctor's instructions that Felicity should rest, a steady stream of visitors arrived bearing gifts and well wishes. Isaac fielded them all with proud new father enthusiasm, allowing only a few at a time to briefly see mother and child. By evening, when the house was finally quiet, Felicity found herself overwhelmed with gratitude for the community that had embraced her so completely. Just months ago, she had stepped off a stagecoach alone and afraid. Now she had a husband, a son, and a town full of people who cared for them. "Penny for your thoughts," Isaac said, bringing her a cup of tea. "I was just thinking about how much has changed," Felicity replied, accepting the cup. "How much you've changed my life." Isaac settled beside her, gently stroking Samuel's dark hair as the baby nursed. "You changed mine first," he reminded her. "I was a lonely rancher with nothing but cattle and memories. Now I have everything I never knew I wanted." "Even with all the complications?" Felicity asked, still sometimes insecure about the unusual circumstances of their marriage. "Especially with the complications," Isaac said firmly. "They brought you to me." 3 weeks after Samuel's birth, a letter arrived from Boston. Felicity recognized her father's handwriting on the envelope and nearly dropped it in shock. With trembling hands, she broke the seal and read the single page. "What is it?" Isaac asked, concerned by her expression. "My father," Felicity said, her voice unsteady. "Charles returned to Boston and apparently made some indiscreet remarks about me at his club. It raised questions, and my father finally investigated further." She looked up, tears in her eyes. "He writes that he was wrong to believe Charles over me, that he regrets his actions, and that he hopes someday I might forgive him." Isaac sat beside her, placing a supportive arm around her shoulders. "How do you feel about that?" Felicity considered the question carefully. Vindicated somewhat, angry still, but also relieved, not for his sake but for mine and for Samuel's. She gazed down at their sleeping son in his cradle. "He deserves to know he has a grandfather, even if it's a flawed one." "Do you want a reply?" Isaac asked. "Yes," Felicity decided. "I'll tell him about you, about Samuel, about our life here. Whether he chooses to be part of it is up to him, but I won't deny him the knowledge of his grandson." Isaac kissed her temple. "That's more generosity than he may deserve, but it shows your strength of character." "Speaking of our life here," Felicity said, setting aside the letter, "Dr. Hayes says I'm fully recovered. I think it's time we move to the ranch, don't you?" Isaac's face lit up. "Are you sure? It's more isolated than town." "I'm sure," Felicity said confidently. "The school term is over until September. We have 2 months to settle in at the Rocking G before I need to think about teaching again." She smiled at Isaac's obvious pleasure. "Besides, I want our son to know his home." The move to the Rocking G took place the following week. Felicity felt a profound sense of rightness as Isaac carried Samuel across the threshold of the ranch house. Now brightened with curtains Felicity had sewn and filled with the subtle touches that transformed a house into a home. Summer days settled into a pleasant rhythm. Isaac taught Felicity about ranch operations, while she organized his library and introduced classical literature into their evening routine, reading aloud as Isaac worked on ranch accounts and Samuel slept nearby. They discovered shared interests and complementary strengths, their marriage of convenience deepening into a true partnership. At night, Felicity still retired to her separate bedroom, though increasingly reluctantly. Isaac remained true to his word about patience, never pressuring her, though the longing in his eyes when he bid her good night spoke volumes. On a warm August evening, as they sat on the porch watching a spectacular sunset paint the Texas sky in golds and purples, Felicity made a decision. Samuel was asleep in his cradle beside them, his little face peaceful in repose. "Isaac," she said quietly, "I've been thinking." He responded, his attention caught by a distant rider approaching the ranch. "About our sleeping arrangements," Felicity continued, feeling a blush rise in her cheeks despite her determination. That caught his full attention. "What about them?" he asked carefully. "I think it's time we shared a bedroom," Felicity said, "as true husband and wife." Isaac's expression softened, his eyes warming with hope and desire. "Are you certain?" "Completely," Felicity assured him, reaching for his hand. "I love you, Isaac. I think I have since that first day when you told me my past didn't matter to you." Isaac lifted her hand to his lips. "I've loved you just as long," he confessed. "But I wanted you to be sure to come to me not from gratitude or obligation, but because you truly wanted to." "I do," Felicity whispered. "Very much." The moment was interrupted by the arrival of the rider they'd spotted earlier, Joaquin, Isaac's foreman, returning from town with supplies and mail. "Boss," he called, dismounting. "Got news you should hear." Isaac rose reluctantly. "What is it?" "That Easterner who caused trouble, Blackburn. Word just reached town that he's dead." Felicity gasped. "Dead? How?" "Killed in a gambling dispute in New Orleans," Joaquin reported. "Shot through the heart by a card sharp he accused of cheating." A complex mix of emotions washed over Felicity's shock, a shameful touch of relief and sadness for the waste of a life, however flawed. "Thank you for bringing the news," Isaac said, dismissing Joaquin with a nod. When they were alone again, Isaac turned to Felicity. "Are you all right?" "Yes," she said after a moment. "I never wished him harm, but I can't deny feeling relief that Samuel is now truly safe from any claim Charles might have made." Isaac nodded, understanding. "It closes that chapter definitively." "And opens a new one," Felicity added, her earlier resolve returning. She stood and held out her hand to him. "Come, husband, it's time we truly began our marriage." Isaac's eyes darkened as he took her hand and rose. Together they checked on Samuel one last time, then walked hand in hand into the house and toward their shared future. That night, their love found physical expression, tender and passionate in equal measure. Afterward, as Felicity lay in Isaac's arms, she marveled at the journey that had brought her to this place, from desperate, pregnant stranger to beloved wife and mother. "What are you thinking?" Isaac murmured, pressing a kiss to her bare shoulder. "That sometimes the worst moments of our lives lead us to the best," Felicity replied. "If my father hadn't disowned me, if Charles hadn't abandoned me, I would never have come west, never have found you." "Then I find myself grateful for their poor judgment," Isaac said, "though not for the pain it caused you." Samuel's cry interrupted them, and Felicity slipped from bed to attend to him, returning moments later with their son. "He's just hungry," she explained, settling back beside Isaac and positioning the baby to nurse. Isaac watched them, his expression filled with wonder. "My family," he said softly. "My world." 5 years later, the Rocking G had flourished into one of the most successful ranches in the county. The original house had been expanded to accommodate not only Samuel, now an active 5-year-old with his father's blue eyes and his mother's intelligence, but also 3-year-old twins Elizabeth and Thomas, who had surprised everyone with their arrival and delighted everyone with their mischievous spirits. Felicity divided her time between her family and the Sweetwater school, which had also grown to require 2 teachers. Her father had visited once, a strained but healing encounter that had led to regular correspondence and a growing relationship with his grandchildren. One crisp October afternoon, Isaac found Felicity sitting under the large oak tree that shaded their front yard, watching Samuel help the ranch hands with the fall roundup while the twins napped inside under Clara's watchful eye. She had taken to visiting regularly, claiming the Galloway children were the grandchildren she'd never had. "Mind if I join you?" Isaac asked, settling beside her without waiting for an answer, a comfortable familiarity born of years of deep love. "Always welcome," Felicity replied, leaning against his shoulder as they watched Samuel earnestly attempting to coil a rope like the cowboys he idolized. "I was thinking," Isaac said, his arm around her waist, "about the day you arrived in Sweetwater." Felicity smiled. "The day you saved me from collapsing in the street, you mean?" "The day my life truly began," Isaac corrected, kissing her temple. "Do you ever regret it? Coming west? Marrying me?" Felicity turned to face him fully. "Isaac Galloway, that's the most foolish question you've ever asked me. How could I regret finding the great love of my life?" Isaac's face crinkled into the smile she adored. "Even with all the chaos?" he asked, gesturing toward Samuel, who had somehow managed to tangle himself in his own rope while the cowhands laughed good-naturedly. "Especially with the chaos," Felicity assured him. "It's a wonderful life we've built, Isaac, more than I ever dreamed possible when I stepped off that stagecoach." "And to think," Isaac mused, "it all started because I saw a pregnant woman with no ring on her finger and decided that didn't matter to me." "The best decision you ever made," Felicity said, leaning up to kiss him. "Second best," Isaac corrected when they parted. "Best was asking you to marry me." As the Texas sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in the brilliant colors that had become so familiar and beloved to Felicity, she gazed at the life spread before her son learning the ways of the ranch he would someday inherit. Her husband's strong presence beside her, their daughters napping in the home they had built together, and felt a completeness that transcended all the hardships of her journey. From desperate beginnings had come abundant joy, a love story written not in the drawing rooms of Boston society, but in the wide open promise of the Texas frontier, where a man's worth was measured by his actions rather than his background, and where a woman without a ring could find not just acceptance, but a love beyond anything she had dared to imagine.